Playa, you know I'm ready for a smackdown.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That is a podcast that explores itself, explores ourselves, and explores the self in general. My name is Ty. I am one of your co-hosts.
And I'm your other co-host who's currently having a manic episode, Distance.
And tonight is the Metacast movie show about Silver Linings Playbook. Silver Linings Playbook is a 2012 romantic comedy. It's directed by David O. Russell, with a screenplay by David O. Russell, based on The Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick.
It stars Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Robert De Niro, and Jackie Weaver.
The budget for this movie was right around $21 million, with a box office take of $236.4 million.
The tomato meter rating is 92%, with an audience score of 86%.
Based on the book, Silver Linings Playbook follows Pat, a man struggling with bipolar disorder who just recently checked out from inpatient care. And as Pat tries to get his life back together and tries to get back together with his wife, he finds out that life does not always go as planned. So this is actually one of my favorite movies ever. And I hate romantic comedies normally. This is a weird movie for me because it has a lot of the things that I normally can't fucking stand in movies, but for some reason I absolutely love this movie. I think that there is a lot incredibly well done. I think that the acting is great. I think the story is great. I think that there's the whole tone, the look of the movie. I think everything is really, really great about this movie. I feel that it's the story and the portrayal of everything is really real, really raw, and there's not really much I can say bad about this movie. I honestly adore it. So to give this any kind of verdict, I have to give this a yes. I think that it is, when we talk about the term that I kind of jokingly made up, the life movies, this to me is like the quintessential life movie. It's gonna make you laugh, it's gonna make you cry, and it has a lot of stuff you could take away to think about. How do you feel about this one?
Okay, I have a lot of issues with this one, but I also feel like there were some good things about it, and I think that the writing could have really used some work, but I also think in a few spots it was I'm just fucking with you, man. You know, on those like cooking like reality shows where you don't know if they're gonna say they did a good job or not.
Yeah, I was breaking a sweat. I was like, oh my god, I was like starting to frantically get together notes. It's like, how do we talk about some of this?
I only have one problem with the movie, and it has nothing to do with the way that it's written or the way that it's done. It's more like how it relates to reality, but it's a movie. So, and it actually, I loved this movie. I thought it was fucking great. I think that it's relatable in some really interesting kind of ways. I think you can relate to all the characters, even though they're like a little crazy. I think
a little.
Yeah, I thought that Bradley Cooper was a weird pick at the beginning of the film, but then realized that he actually worked well with it toward the end. I was like, oh, okay, I get why they picked him then. Mm-hmm. So De Niro can fucking act. I mean, everybody did a good job. This was a little closer to when Jennifer Lawrence was really starting to become particularly well known. I can't remember how close this was to the Hunger Games movie adaptation that they did.
That's a good question.
Same
year. They were both 2012. Yeah.
And so I like the fact that that this is coming out. I kept my mind in the place of her as being a newer actor, like one that I hadn't really. I'm trying to think. Haven't seen this person often.
Yeah,
was kind of the way that I was trying to think of it. So yeah, I mean, for this movie, it was cool. It's a good story. The resolution is a little different than you would expect and I thought it was great. So for me, this one's a definite yes. Yeah, it's great. And honestly, like I wouldn't even really call it a romantic comedy. I mean, it's what were you saying before? I called it normal, and you said it was normal adjacent.
Yeah, because it is definitely like, I mean, so the pick last week was, normal versus weird, and compared to the other movie I had in mind, this is definitely normal. But compared to the cookie cutter romantic comedy, I do think that this movie does have a little bit of that quirkiness to it that might be what draws me to it. Versus like when you go watch the traditional romantic comedy, it doesn't start with the character getting out of a mental hospital from having a breakdown, which I think that's what draws me to this, is it points out that little fucked up side that everyone has, that little bit of weirdness that we all have inside.
Yeah, I really feel like where I was just kind of messing around at the beginning, I just had this feeling that you were like digging your nails in your hands, like, oh, you're about to get the fight of your life, boy. No, it was like this movie.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of though, I mean, let's spoil it. You ready for Terry to come out and ruin things? This is a movie you could kind of spoil. Like even like there are definite like spoilers for this. So yeah, like Terry could fuck it up. What would you say about this one?
To spoil it?
Yeah, Terry just that was fucked up, man. Okay. That was just purely for me editing later.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, so actually, like getting into the movie, I love how it starts. I think that like they set up things perfectly. The whole like exposition of the mental hospital and everything was great, and even like, excuse me, the character setup. I love how the very first scene is Cooper or Pat kind of like rehearsing talking about something, and there's like one of the orderlies knocking on the door telling him the doctor's waiting, and he's like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. And it just kind of shows that like he's that character that always needs to be in control and always thinks that like he's got the like, and it's, I think little things like that's a great example of the way that this movie does that perfectly, is they don't have to show, they don't have to tell you everything. They show you things in a very, very clear way.
Yeah, there's there's a scene where it's toward the end of the film where they're talking about, because I actually didn't understand like the whole idea of parlay in that context. So they get the Indian doctor to be like, come on, someone please explain to me the parlay. And it's like, I'm like, oh fuck, thank God, because I didn't know either.
Yeah, yep.
But they didn't do it in that silly action film way.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, it's something like what are they, something weird like, we'll need to use an EMP. Someone's like, what's an EMP? An EMP is an electromagnetic pulse that can easily disable it, like. So
the EMP will disable the alarms and let us go through this corridor? Yes,
that's exactly what will happen.
Exactly.
At the end of the corridor, we will be able to escape. Yeah. So what you're saying is we'll be able to avoid all the electronic security, but
we could write a Saturday morning action show. I think we got this.
Yeah. Well, we could easily make an action. Why is my eye so itchy? Fuck. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's like the way that they do it, like is, and they sort of let the story tell what's happening. Like you eventually find out that, Pat suffers from bipolar disorder. And then you sort of like, I love the scene where when he and Tiffany first meet each other at the dinner, and they're at the table and they start talking about medications they've been on. That also gives you some more like kind of perspective on like what's going on with either of them. But the thing that's kind of cool is, in some of the older films we've watched, we've talked about like how they didn't age well. Yeah. One way this movie did not age well was the iPod thing.
Yes. Having the like docks in every room and everything. Like, I completely agree with that.
Like when she's talking about like, and then I can play like music for the baby no matter where I am. And then Pat's like, can you play Ride the Lightning by Metallica? She's kind of like, you know what? I actually just realized something that I needed to do that I did not do. I'm going to look something up while we're having this little talk here about the things. Because there are several parts in the film where I typed out in my notes, is that part of bipolar disorder, or is that just his personality?
Okay.
And there's a couple of things like because then there's like another classification called bipolar 2, and then I don't know if they substituted bipolar 2 for cyclothymic disorder, but so weird thing. When I studied psychology for like a couple semesters and then realized I'd have to go to school forever and dropped out of that program. We did this abnormal psych course where at the beginning of our class meeting, we would have groups that he broke us up into. I think there were like 3 or 4 of us per group, and you would have to research a disorder well enough to actually act it out.
Oh, interesting.
To try to fake the symptoms well enough to where people could recognize it. And so it showed your understanding by being able to kind of act it out, which actually required a lot of homework, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
That would require the understanding of the group to be able to identify those symptoms. So bipolar 2 is actually the replacement for cyclothymic disorder. I want to look at the diagnostic criteria for bipolar 1 because I was wondering about some of the things that he does, because I'm always interested in how well, because of that class I took, I'm always interested in how well actors can act out the disorder that they're supposed to be portraying.
I know that I've heard from people talking about this movie that his portrayal was supposed to be very accurate, and that it's like a lot of people are like, oh shit, it's like, oh, I know people with bipolar because of how he acts, but not knowing firsthand, it's like I can't, I'm not going to say and vouch for it, like, oh yeah, of course that's like accurate, but I know that I have definitely heard that. So
I was actually going to save this for the end of the episode because it has to do with something later in the episode, but I think I'll just go ahead and mention it now since we're on it.
Sure.
I actually dated somebody that suffered from bipolar disorder, and she ran out of lithium, and I forget what was going on, but she was unable to get her prescription refilled. So I actually saw a full-blown manic episode happen, like in front of me. Because I was not aware. Apparently she'd been off her meds for a couple days. And it's sad to watch somebody completely lose control like that. Like everything that she was doing and saying was like it was so weird. Like she was even using weird words. Like there's a lot of this rushed, almost like hyperventilating. Like, so like, what do you want to do? Like, I mean, do you want to, could we like, do you want to watch a movie, or we could, and I'm like, do you just want to grab some coffee? So you want to go out in public? And I was like, what a weird fucking thing to say. But it was like, it was really weird. It was like she was unable to handle her level of excitement and almost kind of shut down right there.
Yeah.
Like she ended up like kind of on the floor, like this weird like weak kneed thing where she kind of like shrunk down to the floor, was kind of sitting there, and like she started reorganizing her like handbag or some shit. And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking nuts. Like I can't handle this. And it was just weird. At some point I feel like she said something about changing the world or like reorganizing the government or some shit like that. It was just fucking weird. But it was one of those like, okay, we'll have a good night. I'll see you when you're back on your meds.
Yeah, when you run out of medication and feel like you need to overthrow the government. I've been there. I've definitely been there.
I don't know I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was something along those lines, or like
that's starting
a political party or some shit. I can't remember exactly, but it was all very strange.
Did you date Donald Trump? Is that
what?
Was this the beginning of the Patriot Party? What is?
No, I did not date a fragile narcissist.
I think you may have dated one or two. You're saying you've never dated a fragile narcissist?
Not a fragile narcissist. I feel like I've probably dated. I would say that I've dated some. I might have dated somebody that was a borderline, maybe. A few of those. Actually, there's certain parts of this film where like I even typed out my notes.
Yeah.
What did I say exactly? This reminds me of all the crazy I've dated in the past.
There is that is one of the things I love about this movie the most. Is like I was saying in the brief summary in the beginning. It touches on how everyone does have a little crazy or a little fucked up inside. Like even I like a lot of, when I talk about this movie not being like the cookie cutter, dramedy or the cookie cutter romantic comedy, because a lot of times if this movie would have been done that way, you would have at least one character that is meant to be the almost like objective good or objective pure, or like, a lot of times it's the therapist. You would have never seen the other side of Dr. Patel in this movie if it was done that way. He would be the one-dimensional character that only serves as like the correct answer for Pat or whatever. And I love that this movie doesn't do that. You see him on game day, you see him in the living room being part of the like bet discussion and everything. Like that to me is really cool. It's not like he's doing stuff that probably the therapist shouldn't really do, crossing some boundaries with a patient that are becoming more personal, that it's not bad, but it's not what you would normally see from that role, I think, in many movies.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it is like they're kind of, those characters are one dimensional as hell.
Normally, yeah.
And they're completely detached, and they don't add to the story, in my opinion, much at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just kind of a backdrop. They're like those the other little characters running around in Grand Theft Auto that don't really do anything.
Yeah, the NPCs. Well, and a lot of times, like we were talking about, they serve as almost a way to give the audience information. If the main character needs a correct answer, that can be where they find it from.
And like we talk about character development a good bit on here, and in this film, really the only character that wasn't developed was Nikki.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's interesting because you get a good feel for her at the end of the film anyway.
I get the feeling that she had already done her developing. At the point where Pat meets her and at the point where we meet her as viewers, she became who she grew through a bit major change in her life and became the person that she was for the duration of the movie and as we know her. We didn't need that character to develop because she had already gone through a recent period of growth.
So, and I mean, for that matter, maybe there isn't a developless character in the movie. Okay, the only character that didn't develop was Ronnie's baby.
Well, I would agree with you. It's just that we didn't know.
The developing happened inside the womb before the film started.
True. Yeah.
I love the scene where, there's a moment in the film when he arrives at Ronnie's home with, Ronnie and Veronica's home. Mm-hmm. There's a moment where I understood where the film was going a little better when it's like, how are things going? What does he say? You got to hustle, man. You got to hustle. And the pressure.
Yeah.
The pressure. Man, I'm not okay.
Yeah. I have that line. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Don't tell anybody. I have that line in my notes right here. Yeah.
Like the family, the job, the family, the baby, the job, the fucking dicks at work.
Yep.
And when I saw that, I was like, okay, everyone's fucked up. I see it.
Yep.
This is great.
Yep. Yeah, because even the ones that have the white picket fence, the portraits on the wall, like the family that's supposed to have it all together, like, yep.
Because okay, I kind of want to just take each of the characters we can think of and kind of go over the kind of fucked up we think they are.
Okay. All right. Start with Pat. It's like main character. What kind of fucked up do you think Pat is?
I mean, the thing for me is that I can really only identify personality flaws.
Okay.
Obviously, he has a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
Everything is someone else, right?
He's got the definite, like I brought up earlier, the need to control.
Yep.
Like he has to always be in control. Yeah.
And when he can't control things, he acts out.
Yep.
But to be fair, though, like if I walked in on my wife doing it with somebody in the shower and the first thing they said was, "You should probably go," I don't know if I would have handled the situation much differently than he did. I mean, maybe somewhat differently, but not that much differently, I don't think.
However, we do get, we see that scene basically through his eyes, and we do get a certain question that someone asked that was like, can you think of something you did leading up to or after this? So, you know, we don't know a lot of what the relationship was like between him and Nikki. What, you know, we even hear him talking about that later to Tiffany, where he's saying like, you know, we would have fights and not talk to each other for weeks on end and stuff. And it's like, so they seemed like they had a kind of weird fucked up relationship. So I don't know, like, yeah, I can't put myself in that position because I've never been in a relationship like that.
And I have a feeling that, and just from dating somebody that suffered from bipolar disorder that wasn't always treated, a lot of those points and periods of time were just basically his disorder dictating the pace of the relationship.
Probably, yeah.
And it's like I've never seen somebody get to the. I've never actually seen the moment that someone gets to the very edge of the manic episode and just crashes. I've never seen that firsthand, but apparently it's a terrible feeling to go through and a really sad thing to witness if you care about somebody. You know, I think that in some ways, if you look at Nikki, the little bit that we know, it seems like she had this like need to be needed kind of codependency thing going on.
I can see that, yeah.
For like how long she stayed like in the relationship with him, and maybe like thinking she could help or, you know, change him or whatever instead of.
I do like really for how important Nikki was to the story, how much of a non-character she was. I love that we don't even see her till the very end. She's just kind of like this ominous like mentioned thing. Like I thought that was done in a really interesting way.
She's like Ellie and Up.
Yeah. Yeah,
because like he's talking about her and to her memory, I guess, of in the afterlife and whatnot. And it's like,
except for like Up starts with her. You see them, you know, see them in the very beginning. But yeah, but I agree with that. Where she kind of exists as a ghost through most of the movie, and yeah.
And that's kind of, I mean, it's sad, but it's similar.
I do think it was interesting though, like finally meeting Nikki at the end. It did kind of confuse me that like. You know, it showed that it's like it's not all about looks, right? Like if you have Jennifer Lawrence completely throwing herself at you, you would not still be hung up on Nikki if it was all about looks. So there has to be like something there in that relationship that's what makes me feel good, is that Bradley Cooper obviously saw something in her.
I mean, he was also delusional, so there's that.
That could be it. Yeah, true.
But, you know, like this whole like weird, he's, you know, pretty much obsessed with her. And this weird kind of being hung up on someone that you thought you had a thing with and not being able to let go of the idea or the expectations you have that were never real. Like, yeah, I've actually experienced that myself. And I missed out on a whole lot of really cool like girls that could have been really cool for me to like date or hang out with because I was hung up on someone else. So like, I mean, I can relate to that whole idea, and like looking back on it, I'm thinking like there were a lot of really cool, like attractive, like young women when I was in like my early 20s that I just completely threw shit away for because I was like, oh, it'll never be like insert name here, like, you know, whoever. And, you know, I've always thought of the one that got away as being a delusion. Like, no matter who's thinking it, there's no such thing as the one that got away. That's not a thing.
Well, I mean, but it also is, because you're also reinforcing that fact with, it's not the one, but there could always be ones that got away. Because like you're talking about, it's like how many missed opportunities were there because of you not being open to something. So they weren't like, quote unquote, the one that got away, but it's like those were all ones that got away.
Well, most of the time when we think that, we have some like false idea of all the good things about somebody, and we completely bar anything that was negative about them. That's usually like when we have the idea that there's this one person that was the one that I could have, and you're never willing to entertain anything with anybody else until you can just stop obsessing over that one individual that you thought was it.
Exactly. You know? No, I'm meaning in almost the complete opposite way, where it's like we find out later in this movie that if Nikki, or excuse me, if Tiffany wasn't as persistent basically as she was, like, you know, literally like you're talking about, like this could have very easily, this entire situation passed by Pat because him not being open to it. So it's like that could have been like, you know, a one that got away because he was literally, you know, so focused on Nikki that didn't pay attention to this other great thing that was in front of him. And it's like, you know, because we find out later in the movie that like apparently she was calling Pat's mom and found out when he was going running to even run into him and stuff. And it's like, yeah, if she there's a lot of people that are not that persistent and are not going to try that hard. You know, there's a lot of people that after that first night at dinner would have never really tried to talk to Pat again.
And if I'm honest, I probably wouldn't have blamed them that much.
Exactly. Yeah.
So on the subject of Tiffany, what the fuck is wrong with Tiffany?
What's
going on with that one?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Tiffany. I think she's perfect. How dare you?
I mean, I'm not talking about like hip to waist ratio. But I mean, yeah. It's like she's
good.
Well, she's not a manic pixie girl.
True.
She's not that archetype. I mean, she's definitely not that. But it's like, I mean, she seems to have some difficulties with regulating emotions too, and does seem to have a lack of concern for appropriateness, kind of the same way that Pat does. And so that kind of brings me to the one major problem that I have with this movie is that crazy with crazy, there's no such thing as matching your crazy with another crazy and then somehow everything works out. Two types of crazy, when they come together, are an explosion and not a good one. Like this whole idea that there's going to be one crazy that complements another one is not, it's not reasonable. It's not realistic. That doesn't happen.
Well, I think
like two fucked up people, just everything spirals completely out of control.
Let me answer your first question and then circle to addressing that point then. So your first question, as far as like what is wrong with Tiffany, I honestly don't think a lot, because I think that, like we were talking about, I think that she is someone who's gone through a lot of growth. And I think the position that we see her in this movie, she has a pretty level head on her shoulders. She knows that she has little parts that are fucked up about her, but is able to, you know, be accepting of those, know how to keep those under control and function. I think that it is like we've talked about a few times, the idea that everyone has little bits of fucked up. Everyone has little bits of crazy. There is no one that is like, you know, got everything together. So I think that it is true that two people, they have to have some bits of crazy to complement, or else there would never be any relationship that would ever work. Because if everyone has a little bit of crazy and two people get together and have a relationship that works, then there has to be, it can't be that their relationship works despite their little bits of crazy. You know what I mean? Like that, I do think that is a part of being human, that we have these irrational, fucked up things that we have to deal with. A lot of time is hormone driven or you know, emotion driven and stuff. And I think that is our little bits of crazy, our little bits of unstable. And I do think that it's not necessarily that, like, you find crazy that complements you, but it is that, like, you do find people that you can get along with because your little bits of fucked up kind of fit with theirs in a way that it doesn't spiral out of control, like you were saying that it can.
Well, there's neurosis, which is like regular people nuts. Yeah. And then there's insanity, which is like kind of a brief period of nuttiness that someone would call diagnosable or clinical. Then there's mental illness, which is more or less a chronic thing. Okay. So, I mean, I agree that there's certain types of neurosis that if one person is a little neurotic about this thing or in this fashion, the other person's a little neurotic about this thing in this fashion, that there's ways that if those people are willing, that they can learn from each other and figure out like where they can improve based on the other person's strengths that they may or may not have. Like, you get what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. But like, I think if someone's like clinically, like diagnosably insane or mentally ill, in this case, Pat, that's a bit different. But the thing is that we have an obvious, with his character, we see that with him for sure. But I guess maybe what you're saying is that Tiffany's just like regular fucked up who went through a bad experience, had some bad coping mechanisms, and figured out that wasn't the way to cope with loss. And there's one line that I really, really like, and I really, really hope that it's not the one that you...
it's definitely not, no.
Okay, cool.
I want to touch on what you were saying right there, though, because I think I view of it more as a spectrum. I don't know if there's like a line where I see that it's like, you know, this person is clinically fucked up versus this person is like has the normal person neuroses. Like I just see that as a spectrum where it's like anyone that has normal person neuroses could just be 3 bad days away from ending up in inpatient care, like, you know, like Pat did. You know, like I don't know if that necessarily is a like predisposed thing that, you know, Pat was going to end up there because of something internal, or like I don't know. I definitely view it more as like a sliding scale, though, and I think
you can have a psychotic episode or something like that, or a major depressive episode, and I mean, there's not everybody. Like if you look at the DSM-5, like the for lack of a better term, we'll call it the psychologist Bible that has all the, you know, the criteria. There's a lot of the time you're not going to see people that actually fit every single diagnostic criteria. But the thing that typically separates, like, okay, it drives me fucking crazy when someone says, no pun intended, by the way, on the driving me crazy thing. When somebody says, hey, could you straighten that picture? I am OCD.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, number one, you are not the disorder. And I'll even say, like, are you okay? So if I take the picture and I go like this, and I'll actually make it more crooked, I'll be like, are you feeling like a really intense degree of anxiety to the point like where you feel like your insides are about to collapse? Like, are you going to lose your mind if you walk away from this? Like, is it going to interfere with the rest of your day if I don't make this straight right now?
Of course.
Like, if you stand there for 5 more minutes, are your insides going to turn inside out? Then they'll be like, no. So what you're saying is you're kind of particular.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so, I think we do that a lot. I mean, even the same thing like happens with bipolar. People will like if they have a short fuse. Yeah, exactly. There's like, oh, I'm bipolar. It's like, well, no, you're not.
The thing that separates like just neurosis from what we would define as mental illness is the intensity of it.
Correct.
Like, does it interfere with your everyday life?
And a lot of times the diagnosis too, because like we talked about, like Pat talks about in the movie, it's like, you know, he was dealing with this undiagnosed for how many years. So there is a percentage of people out there that have a disorder, just have not been diagnosed. And they would think that they're functioning with what we would consider those neuroses, and they're literally just, you know, trying to deal with a disorder on their own.
And depending upon the therapist and the patient, there are many times where a diagnosis won't be shared with you. They'll just kind of try to help you out and like sort of give you some medication, tell you what it's for, but never actually give you a label, because sometimes that can, I mean, and it depends on the doctor and the patient. I mean, like, I mean,
I've never had a doctor give me an unlabeled, like that would be sketch. He just slides me some pills, like don't look these up, but take them.
Oh, well, I mean, if he gave me this is what they are, this is what they're for, they're to help with this thing, well then okay. But they don't have to give you tell you you have this thing, because I think in a lot of cases it creates almost like this is a stupid thing to say, but a reverse placebo effect.
I could like, see that.
So you act like you have this thing because you looked up a bunch of stuff about it.
I know I'm the type of person that like I would go on WebMD or whatever and look up the pill. You know what I mean? Like I would look up like what it is, and be like, oh, this is 50 milligrams of this. This is diagnosed normally for this, or this is prescribed normally for this. Like,
which, and my understanding for the most part, like especially with like, well, your mom works in medicine too, like and my mother also, like having a mom that like works in medicine, that she says that WebMD is one of the most annoying pieces of shit ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Because like people will come in there and try to tell the doctor what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I had some problems with the AC unit in my apartment the other day. Like if the maintenance person came in here, I was like, what's going on? Is it the I was like, think of a random word, is it an air conditioner unit? Compressor? That's a thing, right?
It's the compressor valve.
Like, it's like, how about you just let me do my job? But yeah, it's just, I think that the intensity of what's going on has a lot to do with it. And, maybe because you can tell, I mean, what's happening with Pat is really getting in the way of his life.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas I think that maybe Tiffany has been through some shit, just like regular people's shit and like grief.
Yeah.
And did some unhealthy things to deal with it and recognized where she was, I guess.
Yep.
And maybe like maybe she's just in a different place now, right? Is that kind of like what you're saying, that she's at a spot where she's sort of gotten some things figured out, and now she can actually be an asset to someone else that's going through some shit?
Yeah, it seems like, exactly. It seems like she's got her shit together to me, at least, if I'm reading the signs. And
the line that it's funny because I actually wrote the entire line out. The line that kind of, I think, goes with the point that you're making about Tiffany's character is the scene where they're running and he like calls her a slut or whatever. And she says, "I was a big slut, but I'm not anymore. There's always going to be a part of me that's sloppy and dirty, but I like that with all the other parts of myself. Can you say the same about yourself, fucker? Can you forgive? Are you any good at that?"
Yeah, it's a good line.
And I was just like, wow. Because like at that point you see that she has some character. Like, yeah, you fucked up. Everybody fucks up. You fucked up in a big way.
Yep.
Like you probably feel shitty about it, but you have figured out a way to just get past it and forgive yourself. It's
exactly.
Okay. Some bad shit happened, and now you're on the other side of it.
Yeah, and that shows real growth. Yeah, and that's what I. So then, like, talking about that character, then when you're asking like what's wrong with them, it's like, to me that I don't see much, because it's like that to me is, everyone's got a little bit wrong with them, you know, and like it seems like that's a person who has their head on their shoulders and is able to deal with the things they have wrong with them, and it's not getting in the way of their day-to-day life at all. So
Tiffany's like kind of post fucked up.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Sure.
There's a little more fucked up's gonna be there, and she's still a person. That's unavoidable, but like, you know, kind of like, you know, post fucked up.
Yeah, but it's like
post hardcore.
But in the immortal words of I actually have no idea whose song that was. There's a famous saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," but there was also like a really bad pop song. I forget who. I think it was Kelly Clarkson, maybe. But I do think though that there is some truth to that saying though, where like the post fucked up, going through something that causes that kind of growth, I think makes you a stronger person. I think the Tiffany that we meet in this movie is stronger than the Tiffany before any of the incidents. Before the pre fucked up Tiffany is nowhere near as strong as post fucked up Tiffany.
Agreed. Oh, post fucked up Tiffany just knows how strong she is.
Okay, that's true. Okay, I can see that.
The other fucked up Tiffany had no idea until shit fucking happened. And then post fucked up Tiffany was like, God damn, Tiffany's pretty strong.
Speaking of Tiffany being strong scenes, how'd you feel about her when Robert De Niro finally likes her, when she like talks about all the Eagles juju and like starting to make some sense there, Pop?
Yeah,
I thought that was a great scene.
I wrote something down about that. Oh, I said specifically, bullet point says, when Tiffany comes in and cracks skulls.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead. Yeah.
There's a particular thing about that scene where they're doing the parlay thing. The Cowboys used to be my team.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like back when I watched football, and they're part of the reason I decided to stop, because it was heartbreaking. Because, you know, it's whatever. I don't even know their record now or who even plays for them, but they were garbage when I stopped watching football. So I was like, man, let me think, what year was this? And I'm pretty sure that the Cowboys were garbage around that time too.
Okay.
So that was when the Tony Romo days were still happening. So like, you know, that was the most emotional scene in the movie. Right? We're just remembering how garbage they were, like America's team.
I do think that scene was done really well. When Pat realizes that it was her that wrote the letter, because she uses that, like, if it's me reading the signs line while like talking in that scene, and he kind of pieces it together. Like I liked that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a feeling that she wrote it just for no reason, like not piecing anything together. It was like, you know what, I wonder if she wrote the letter actually. And
I actually thought that he figured it out when he first read it, when he kind of walked away dejected that first night, but but apparently not.
Because it was funny, because even though I suspected that, when he immediately walks outside, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Then he gets the letter out. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? And then I see the line that he's reading in the letter. Is like, I know what he's doing.
Yep.
But it took me a minute to really get it. And, you know, like, did you find it interesting that Pat, this is interesting now that we've gotten this whole like weird post fucked up terminology. So when you see that Pat in the parlay scene is able to tell, well, first of all, rewinding a little bit, when he mentions that some of his dad's tendencies are reminiscent of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
And then later on, when he's telling his dad, like, look, this is toxic. Like what's happening now is toxic. You doing this thing is toxic. This bet thing is toxic. This juju thing. And it's like, maybe Pat is slowly getting closer to his post fucked up stage.
Oh, 100%. The whole,
least it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you see that change immediately when he meets Tiffany, and over the course of the second half of this movie, he is becoming post fucked up Pat. Yep.
And it's like, it's almost kind of like with certain types of mental illness, it's kind of like cancer. It's in remission. Like,
yeah, sure.
If you're an alcoholic, you didn't used to be. You're now a recovering alcoholic. So it's always there, and you always have to deal with it, but you just kind of get better. It's like the doctor. He keeps saying you need to have a strategy.
Yeah, well, and or sometimes a sponsor. And I think that like having someone else that has gone through it and kind of helps guide you, like that is used a lot in addiction. Like you were just talking, like the relating to that. I think that Tiffany was almost like his Sherpa of the mountain of being fucked up. Like she had already climbed that mountain and was able to kind of guide him and show him, some path of getting out of what he was in. But it does bring me to, how do you feel about the kind of fucked up tricks that some people pulled in this movie? Like, for instance, Tiffany writing the letter and tricking. I mean, like, normally I am not one that agrees with, lying to someone like that and really like deceiving someone like that. To me is a clear cut wrong. But like, there are sometimes moral grays where, like, if she is, that guidance kind of role, and she feels like that this is a lesson that he is going to learn, is that fucked up, or is that like, almost a teacher role? Where, how do you feel about that?
I didn't really think about it till just now. I kind of thought it was a little fucked up, and then I was like, it's okay, they're in love now. Yeah. So, I guess. So I have oftentimes said that not all manipulation is bad manipulation.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, for instance, when I'm at the shooting range and I notice that I'm shooting with someone who's a little inexperienced, and I can tell that they're flinching in a bad way that actually affects their aim.
Yeah, like pre-shooting flinch. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I sneak a couple practice rounds into the magazine when they're not looking. So then when I say, like, you're flinching, you're anticipating the recoil, and they say, no, I'm not. You're like, okay. So I sneak a couple practice rounds in. So when they go to squeeze the trigger, nothing happens, and they flinch, lo and behold. Yeah. I've kind of fucked with them a little bit.
Yep.
And I've had people do the same to me. Like, I've even asked friends, I think we've even done it at range, but hey bro, can you load this magazine but put a couple practice rounds in there? Like, in the most fucked up way you can think of.
Yeah, yep. Backwards, so it jams. No.
Yeah. I was with my buddy James. I think James put 4 practice rounds in a row.
Oh yeah, at that point you think it's you're malfunctioning. Yeah.
And so, and it's just a way to teach people. So I think that for Pat, and like, I mean, tell me if you disagree with me, but it seems like Pat
real
just
quick,
never had
let me also say, I think it's also really similar to the doctor Dr. Patel playing the song in the lobby. It's like, that is also kind of fucked up, but a teaching and testing moment that it's like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong. But did you feel the same kind of along the same lines between the two?
A little bit. I mean, that was sort of a not quite textbook form of exposure therapy that he was using. Typically it would be like, I'm afraid of heights. Like, okay, let's look at a picture of the view from the top of a building. Okay, let's stand at this part of the building but not get close to the ledge. Let's get a little closer to the ledge. Yeah. Let's get even closer. Let's get right next to it and see how we feel. That's a way to, but for this it's like, I'm going to grab you, pull you toward this ledge and hold you here. Like, that's kind of more what it was like. But yeah, I mean, I think similarly, because, I think that I just don't think Pat had any closure. He didn't have anything that was said. There was no real end to it. And he had this sort of delusional, silly hope that somehow it would happen. And what Tiffany did was create closure. Like, it's better if we live things apart. And all she's doing is saying exactly what she knows is the best thing, not because she's having some arrogant sort of I know better than you idea of what's good for someone else, but because she suffered grief also,
Yep.
and that she understood that, oh man, getting a little choked up here, buddy. That she understood that there has to be something to close off,
Yeah.
and she really did have his best interest in mind. So
Yep.
in that case, it's like, it's a little iffy, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know for sure, but for me, as long as it's a net positive, then it doesn't seem so bad. And I mean,
Yeah. I think the outcome matters. Yeah.
Right. And if you look at Pat's perspective, he wasn't angry.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I would say the opposite. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's probably grateful that happened. Speaking of, you kind of touched on there, though, I am, so it definitely is that Pat needed closure. I think that we see that through the movie, it's throwing it at us, and then at the very end, it clearly shows us that, the scene where he does finally walk up and talk to Nikki. I love that we don't get to hear what he said to her, but I want to know, like, what do you think he said to Nikki? Do you have any idea what he would have been whispering, or like what, like?
Well, because I mean, I've known a lot of different kinds of people over the years, and I've known a few addicts, like people that were and are recovering, and the most in charge addicts, meaning like the ones that really have it under control, are the ones who don't hide it, I think.
Okay.
And I work with two, actually, and I was close friends with another. And I think that it probably was something close to what happens in Addicts Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, where he essentially just took a realistic inventory of who he was and what he did, and didn't make excuses, but just, I have a feeling he just told her, like, look, I did this, I put you through that. I'm very sorry that this happened. I'm very sorry that that happened. I'm sorry, I have done this. I've gotten here. I've gotten there. I hope that your life is great. And, glad we had our thing for a while, probably something along those lines. I have a feeling that one of the parts of the steps in AA, because I've actually had someone reach out to me in the seeking amends
8,
part.
right? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Make a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to, or actually, step 9 is making the direct amends to such people. Step 8 is making the list, I guess. So yeah, at some point though, I thought that's what you were talking about though. Yeah.
So I actually had somebody reach out to me out of nowhere and asked, and I think if it's safe to do so is one of the other things for the direct thing. I actually had someone reach out to me out of nowhere and ask if I wanted to grab coffee. I was like, this is fucking weird. And I was like, is this a booty call? I'm going to be pissed if this is a booty call. And then we met up, and that's kind of what the point was to have a conversation about, the way that this person felt that they wronged me. And I was like, oh, and it's cool to actually see somebody become that self-aware, seemingly overnight to me, because it had been years.
I mean, there is, I would say there's kind of one part of it that I don't want to take away from it, but that it's kind of like prescribed. You know what I mean? It's not that they like decided to do that on their own. They probably decided to seek help on their own or something. So at least there's that, but it is like, it takes away a little bit of it, that that it's literally just part of a step that they're supposed to do this. But at least you were one of the ones that made their list. They thought of you, like they recognized, hey, I hurt this person and I need to reach out and make amends for this.
There is something that happens where, just from knowing other people that were addicts too, there's a thing that happens where people, it is accepted that you will sometimes repeat the steps.
Okay.
And there are times where people don't actually understand why they're apologizing to somebody, and that means that they've skipped one of the other steps, which is, I think, take an honest personal inventory or something like that.
Gotcha. Yep.
So the way that, in the specific situation that I was reached out to, I could tell it was sincere.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I chose to forgive that person. If it was not, I would have been like, you know what, I can tell you're just doing this because someone told you to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in plenty of situations, that's exactly what happens.
And I do think that it can 100% be both. You can have a sincere moment because someone told you to do it too. I don't think that it is mutually exclusive, but.
Yeah, I can't believe I talked about the parlay scene earlier without mentioning this, but the part where the doctor asks what it is and they explain it, and he's like, "That's very, very manic indeed." That shit is great.
Yes.
He's like, "But I'm not your physician, so I'm just gonna sit here."
And that's what I'm talking about as far as like almost, doing things that are technically like, I don't want to say crossing a line as a therapist, but just, like not being the therapist role that you would normally see. Like you see them as the person. And that's what this movie does so well, is like every character is real and relatable rather than just filling some role that they're supposed to fill.
On the subject of being real, I'm glad I glanced at my notes because I would have forgotten this. I love the scene where there's personal memory. I have a picture of my oldest sister putting a tie on her now husband when they were dating. And it is probably one of the sweetest photographs I've ever taken. Like, in my opinion, it's better than any of the ones that they took at the wedding.
Okay.
It's just like this sort of
shots
like really
fired at the photographer,
kind of,
by the way, but no.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, like, sorry, photographer, if you're there. Hey, sis, if you're listening. She's not. It's fine. But it's funny to me because at the scene where she's putting the bow tie on Pat, and it's like, oh, and she's like, oh, fuck, like, I can't do this. I'm like, yes.
Yep.
And then she tries the actual, like, regular tie, still fucks up, says whatever, and like, no tie. I love how real that is.
Yep. And I love how real her performance is in that. I love, dude, both these actors were fucking phenomenal in this. I mean, I've loved Jennifer Lawrence for a long time. Like, that I don't mean as an actor, and I've loved Bradley Cooper for a long time as an actor.
It's fine.
Whatever, everyone has to crush on Bradley Cooper too. You can't help it. Like the man is just perfect. But like,
I don't get it.
I didn't really know that he like. This showed me a lot more of his chops. His role in this, like he's a lot better in this than a lot of other things I've seen. And this really showed me what he could do as an actor a lot, I think. In that scene though, it's like she's showing this real raw emotion of getting frustrated with it, and that's still where he's keeping up the lie, knowing that she wrote the letter, and he's got this look on him while he's watching her tie it. That's just it's acted so well. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really good performances.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think that one of the most what's the word I'm looking for? One of the most revealing of an actor's talents is when they can act like they're acting.
Yeah,
which is what he's doing. Like you are acting what someone would act like if they were pretending.
Exactly.
And
yes.
It's like a weird like meta thing. Hey.
Yeah. and yeah, like, it takes a level of subtlety that a lot of actors cannot have. Yeah.
You have to be very in touch with being human and how to portray that in a way that comes through on camera. Like, and the way that he does like the moments of panic and the times where he's sort of acting out and the way that he does it. Even like the accelerated talking when he's pacing back and forth in his parents' room at 3 a.m.
about Hemingway.
Which, I mean, I witnessed that too. The person I dated that suffered from bipolar disorder during a manic episode, she would be pacing around my apartment until like 4 or 5 a.m. And the depressive episodes were, I mean, we didn't even see each other that much. So, and that's one of the reasons why I thought that a lot of the ups and downs in his relationship with Nikki had a lot to do with that, because I've actually experienced it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. You know what? I'm pissed about one thing so far. We haven't talked about Danny at all.
Dude, I love that Chris Tucker was in this movie. I forgot that he was in this. I remembered how much I loved this movie and I was excited to watch it. And then the first scene with Chris Tucker, I was like, oh yeah. Like,
I think he's great. I love his little like fake lawyer shit where he
jailhouse like, lawyer or whatever.
And they come to get him and he's like, actually, I guess I was mistaken. Yeah. And he's like, he's got this like Loki-esque kind of, it's like a lovable mischief to him. And when he shows up and then does the dancing thing, like when he's partying with them, like during the football game at the end.
Dude, I almost picked when he was helping Pat and Tiffany with the dance. That is my second favorite line in the movie. When he tells them to black it up, Pat. Yeah. That is, I love like, that. It's like, what is that?
Pat's like, what? It's like, you know what I mean.
You know what it means. Yeah.
So now I have another film, because as far as Chris Tucker goes, for me, it's Rush Hour, Fifth Element, and now
Yep.
Silver Linings Playbook. And he was just excellent, and
Yep.
and I think that he shows and maybe I'm mistaken here, but I feel like he shows a little bit of depth in this film too.
I'd agree with that.
I mean, he's not Ruby Rod, and he's not whatever that character's name was. And is it Roy in Rush Hour?
I think so. Oh my God, you got
They're basically the same character. Like, one's Ruby Rod, the other one's Ruby Rod dressed like a cop, and with Jackie Chan. I mean, they're not really that much different from each other, the two roles. But I thought he was brilliant in this. I think he was the right choice for that role, because I think that Danny adds some significance, because it kind of Carter.
Yep.
Oh, Roy is from Shanghai Noon.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
It's another buddy film with Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
What scene in the movie was the funniest for you?
The funniest? Dude, I had a lot of good laughs in this.
Name a few.
Okay. Well, see, I don't want to go into my favorite lines though either. I can't think of like there's not like there's one moment that's funny. It's the laughs of relief in those moments. Like, for instance, okay, one of them, I loved Ronnie talking about. It's the second time he goes into talking about how he's not okay, and when he gives Pat the iPod, and he's like talking about the music that's on it, and he's like, and then when I'm angry, which is a lot these days, I go into the garage, Metallica, Megadeth, I start fucking smashing shit. Like, just the scenes like that, where it's like, it's just good, like not one liner, but like good like dialogue that makes me laugh. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I can think of like moments that had me like laughing hard as far as like physicality. I think it was mostly dialogue driven.
That scene with Ronnie where he's doing that, I have a feeling that a good bit of that was improv.
Yeah,
because it sounded like he was kind of like layering it on in a way that was kind of real. And I like John Ortiz. I like a lot of the stuff he's done.
Oh yeah,
I think he was an American Gangster with Denzel.
I think you're right.
One of the
yeah,
cops with a big mustache and the Mustang.
Yeah. Oh, another. I know another moment that had me laughing pretty hard was just why are they so excited about a 5? But that was that was just more of like a feel good relief laugh, because it's like they did it, like, yeah, but it's like, and then they're like, what? Why are they so excited about a 5?
That is like, I started laughing the moment they lost their shit about that. Like, that was actually that amused me the most out of any scene in the film. There's something about that they're just like losing their shit, and everyone's like, what? And
the timing was perfect too. There was the right amount of time between of dead silence until the cheer. Like, it was awesome. Yeah.
And I really like the Apple promo that this movie was, by the way.
Sure, yeah. There was iPods all throughout it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the white MacBook right next to the dock for the iPod with the iPod. Shameless this. They're watching videos on the iPod. There's one thing that I think was done well, but not overdone. The scene where Pat goes to talk to Nikki and Tiffany leaves.
Okay, yes.
They did the tension there really, really well. But they didn't overdo it.
Yeah.
Like, with wondering if, like, the way that they played it with him whispering in Nikki's ear, and then she's leaving and you don't know if he's going to get there in time. Like, why the fuck are you wasting time with this heartfelt moment with your dad? Like, come on, dude. Like, the way that they did that tension was good. It wasn't overdone, and that's really tricky to do in a movie like this, to get it like just right. And I think that they did.
Yeah, I agree. I think this movie has a lot of little moments like that are perfect examples of subtle things that, when done right, just end up making things great. And I think that they can easily be overlooked, because they're not things that a lot of times you consciously even notice, but it's like, they're little things like that. If you pay attention, they definitely add to the overall quality and the experience that you have while watching it.
Did you like at the end when Pat's mom was teaching Danny how to cook some of the dishes she was making?
Yes. I thought that was this. There were a lot of scenes in this, yeah, just super touching, super like great moments like that. There is, okay, one, I don't want to call it a problem I have with this, but I do notice there is like this formula that a lot of these touching movies follow. And this one even reminded me because of doing Elizabethtown within this past year, where it's like it even has that like, here's, you know, the actor doing a performance type thing at the end, where it's like, you know, this one had like a dance performance that the leads do, and that one had Susan Sarandon doing her like big, you know, like stand-up bit. But it's like, I've seen that in other movies though, where it kind of like leads to this climax moment where someone is doing some sort of performance thing for people, and like it shows some sort of growth. It's not that that's like a bad thing, it's just that it's like it shows how similar a lot of movies are, where they kind of have to follow the same emotional arc or same kind of like, you know, energy arc, I guess, you know, like they keep the pacing in a certain direction, or like, yeah.
It's funny that, you know, to see, and I've talked about this before, like in bicycle racing, there's all the people, there's the one person that's essentially the leader. They're the one that wins the races and gets the points.
Yeah.
Then there's the domestiques, which is like a French word for like servant, and they are just there to help the team leader. Then there's what they call a super domestique, which is someone who is not the team leader. They could win on their own,
okay,
if they had the team serving them, but they're just a really, really good racer that's there to help the leader of the team, who's actually there to score the points, you know, get the yellow jersey and all that other stuff. And Robert De Niro is a super domestique in this movie.
Yes.
He is the supporting actor that could lead on his own.
Oh yeah.
And dude, oh my God, the scene where he kind of opens up to Pat, bro,
about the games
guy,
and how, yeah.
Yes. He can act.
Yeah, he can act too, and it's like that scene really resonated with me because I have been doing the exact same thing with my parents, where it's like, you know, it's like he was trying to find something that he liked and a way that he could share it as a moment with his son. And it's like, I realized that it's like, I've done that. Like I've got my mom playing Tarkov, where we have this thing that we can talk about and we have this cool thing that we bond on. And it's like now like bringing my dad in to do the music show. It's like the whole goal of that was to have like this thing that I can like bond with my dad over. So it's like, I like seeing that portrayed by De Niro in this really raw way was like, that's cool. Yeah. It's like he's such a good actor. Yeah. And I feel exactly like you were saying. I forget, there was another review of this that I watched where someone was saying like, this is how De Niro in this is how you do a supporting role correctly. He is like, he is there enough, but not like, doesn't try to take over the scenes, but it's just like, yeah, the such a great supporting role. Yeah.
I mean, he's truly a professional. I mean, he's been doing movies for a long time, and the guy just knows his shit. He knows how to work with people. Like he's the kind of actor that listens to the director, but I think that most directors know when to listen to him too, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Robert De Niro as a performer is very near and dear to my heart, just as the things he's done over the years. And hey, when he was beating up Pat, when he elbows his mom, am I the only one that couldn't help but think about Raging Bull right then?
A little bit. I loved the dialogue. It was like, stop hitting him. I'm not hitting him. It's like, the awkwardness of that, like that fight was just great. Yeah. Oh man, I love this movie. There is one theme that we have not really touched on that I really want to like quickly I hate to quickly brush on it, but it's like we're really running low on time. But the whole like doing things for yourself versus doing things for others. I love the change you see in Pat over this movie, where at first everything he's doing to better himself is for Nikki. It's great that he is doing these things that are, you know, are having the effect of making him a better person. He got, you know, in shape, he's reading, like he's doing a lot of things that are bettering him, but the reason why he's doing it is all wrong. And that you see that shift over the course of the movie, that he is doing things eventually for himself. And that to me, I think is a really cool theme. And I think they show it in a really cool way throughout the course of this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, that it reminds me of one of my favorite videos on YouTube, because there's all these jackasses out here telling you like how to pick up women and how to sleep with 100 women in 3 months or whatever.
Those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers. No.
Well, there's one dude that has a video about like how to get your ex back. And in the video he says, here's what you need to do. You need to work out. You need to maybe explore a thing that you've been wanting to try that you haven't tried. You need to hang out with your friends. You need to make some time for yourself, do some stuff that you want to do. Read a book, go for a bike ride, go for a run. You know what? Just keep doing this stuff. Don't text her. Don't call her. Leave her alone. Just do what you got to do to make yourself the best version of you that you possibly can. If someone comes along and they want a date, maybe go out on a date with somebody else.
Do a dance competition with Jennifer Lawrence when she asks.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was like, if you play your cards right, maybe she'll drop you a line. If you haven't talked to her for a month or so. And if you feel like sending her a message or something, do it. But you know what, man? Chances are, after you've done all this stuff and you've gone this long without talking to her and you made all this progress, you're not going to be worried about her anymore.
Exactly. Yep.
And that is I love that he wraps the video up at the end by saying, and you know what? Just do this stuff for you. And I think that's great. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of what that reminds me of. So yeah. Yeah. Glad you mentioned that theme. It's actually a really important one in this movie, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's subtle enough that it's not thrown in your face, but it's definitely there. It is and that is one of the things that I want to focus on more going into the next year and everything. I do want to because the whole point of what we're doing, is it's fun to watch a movie and it's fun to, enjoy it and talk about it with my friend, but also we do want to take the look at ourselves through the lens of the movie and try to take some sort of lesson away from it. What can we learn to become, somewhat better from this media? And I think that is a big one, is learning to do things for yourself. I think that is important. I think that everyone can walk away with doing things more for your self in the good kind of selfish way. Yeah. Are you ready for favorite line?
Oh, I'm ready for favorite line.
I'm excited to hear yours, because you said you picked it pretty quickly, and it was near the beginning of the movie. Oh my god, I got the hiccups. All right, let's hear it. What is yours? Well, first, why? Why did you pick it?
Well, I'm gonna give away at least who said it with my explanation. There's something that a lot of people don't understand about immigrants that what happens when you move to the U.S. in many cases is that you assimilate, and there are things that you end up finding an interest in that you may not have expected when you move to the U.S. that other people that were born in the U.S. might not really know you're into. And my dad's from India, so seeing that his favorite bands when he moved here were one of them was the Eagles. This Indian engineer guy gets into the Eagles. It's kind of strange and interesting. Or, I had a friend that came over here. He's from South India, and he became a huge fan of Alice in Chains and other grunge music that he wasn't exposed to in India that he heard here, and he wasn't in the country. Mm-hmm. Things like that happen. So, and this line's a little bit of a cheat because there is a line between the two things he says.
That's fair.
But it's it's not terrible. What Jersey? Deshaun Jackson is the man.
Yeah. Well, that settles that. That is a good one. That is a very good one. I love too that then it immediately cuts to him on the porch and he's regretting wearing the jersey. He's like, I shouldn't have fucking wore this. Yep. Oh man. So I picked my line because this movie for me is just full of the touching moments that I love. This one is a really touching moment at the very end. And it's a cool father-son moment. And I think that it's the situation that I would want, basically the line that I would want my dad to say to me if I was ever in that situation. Let me tell you. I know you don't want to listen to your father. I didn't listen to mine. And I'm telling you, you got to pay attention to the signs. When life reaches out with a moment like this, it's a sin if you don't reach back. I'm telling you, it's a sin if you don't reach back, and it will haunt you for the rest of your days like a curse. You're facing a big challenge in your life right now, this very moment right here. That girl loves you. She really, really loves you. I don't know if Nikki ever did, but she sure as hell doesn't love you now. I'm telling you, don't fuck this up. I can't do it as good as De Niro, of course, but
dude, respect. I never would have had the balls to choose a De Niro line.
I had to. It was such a. I love that moment. Like De Niro
Hats
just
off.
yeah, but yeah.
I mean, that is a fucking great line. Like there is some love in there, and there's some truth, and there's some heavy-handedness, and it's like all just the right amount of everything. And in the movie, it's delivered in only a way that De Niro could do it.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a great line. It was a great choice. But
And it's also,
honestly,
I think, in the movie, it's we see a moment too where De Niro was kind of absent a lot for Pat, and he definitely wasn't the favorite son. And I don't know, it seems like I forget his brother's name in this, but it seems like that's a speech that his brother would have gotten a lot, and maybe Pat wouldn't have. So I think that like that's also what really like stood out to me too, was it was kind of like a bonding moment where it's like we see that Pat Senior and Pat Junior are becoming a lot closer and mending the shit that we see. Because I mean, like the first time when we walk in the house, the beginning, and you see that like Pat Junior's portrait is no longer on the wall, like it was taken off, and like those little subtle things like that are like the little family riffs like that are real and they're raw. Yeah.
Isn't his brother? Isn't he a Nicholson, the actor?
I think so. Yeah. I couldn't forget that. I couldn't remember the character's name though.
I'm gonna.
Well, do you have choices for next week? What am I picking?
Yeah, I think there was. Okay. Hold on. I had one in mind, but I never typed it out. I'm gonna type it out so when I ask you, I don't sound like an idiot.
Okay, no worries.
These will actually be interesting.
I suck.
Yes.
Fuck.
What?
I forgot to record this, so I have to download it from Twitch again. I keep trying to remember to like actually record it locally to have just have the video.
Oh, okay. I think these are good ones. One of these is one that I've actually used for the last several weeks.
Okay.
But we still haven't picked the movie though. Okay. Would you like to do a movie with a good actor that everyone loves to make fun of, or a movie about someone that everyone loves to hate?
It's about someone that everyone loves to hate? I want to pick the first one, the one that you used a few times. Let's see the good actor that everyone likes to make fun of.
Adaptation.
Sweet. I am down with that. He is a great actor, and everyone does love to make fun of him.
Nick Cage, I think, is fantastic. I think that because he doesn't choose these crazy Oscar roles that like everybody has some kind of prejudice against him or something that they don't like, but he really is a good actor, and it pisses me off that nobody ever gives him credit.
Has he ever won? He has won an Oscar. Okay. He has not. Oh my God! He won an Oscar for adaptation. Actually, he won Best Actor.
Really?
He won Best Actor for adaptation, and he also won Best Actor for Leaving Las Vegas in 1996. That's kind of cool. I did not know that was the.
I don't know if I saw Leaving Las Vegas. Can we do that instead? I'm just kidding. I haven't seen this movie in forever.
Same here.
It's been a long time.
It has definitely been a minute for me too, and I am very excited to rewatch this because I have learned a lot about it recently that I did not know when I first watched it. Like I didn't know the whole like story behind why it's called adaptation and everything, that it was supposed to be like a novel adaptation of this story, that literally the person trying to write the screenplay could not adapt it, so instead wrote this meta like movie about trying to write the adaptation. Like it really is possibly the perfect like Metacast movie to review, because it is like a movie about the movie itself. Like
it sounds like how we started the podcast. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing, so it was a podcast about figuring out what the fuck the podcast was about.
Exactly. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. So yeah, great choice. I'm excited to do this one. Awesome. Well, guys, that is going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast Movie Show. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the discussion, please hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date, and comment below and tell us how you felt about Silver Linings Playbook.
If you thought that this episode felt like a manic episode and you want to further keep up to date, or even join us as a guest on a future episode, please join our Discord. The link is in the description. We will be live next week in this place on the internet on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/Tyla TV.
Thanks everyone for listening, and I hope you guys have a great week.